So now I'll show you how you can build that physics. So first of all, create an empty entity, and let's call this vehicle, and we will add collision to it, and this collision will be spare collision. Make the radius 1 and set the position a little bit above, so we'll just drop it from that position, and then add rigid body to it and make it dynamic, and make sure that you set all of these angular factors to 0, because we will basically apply force to the spare but not necessarily angular. It's not going to be angular. Yeah, and then create a script called vehicle and attach that script to the vehicle itself. And so we will have few settings, so we can play with the numbers later. One of them is going to be speed. Make this number. For now, let's just give a number, a default number. Let's say movement, and there's a keyboard functionality built in PlayCanvas. You can use this. Whenever I press W, I will move the vehicle to the forward. And in order to do that, you can apply force to the entity itself. And I will just, for now, I'll just put this to the Z axis. Yeah, and then you can click parse to get the attributes here as well. Click launch. Let's see how it looks like. And you can also change the camera to camera perspective. And also finally make sure you add some sort of box into it. At least we see where is the object. As you can see, it drops from this position. Whenever I press W, it just goes to a direction, which is kind of cool. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to call this box base. This is going to be our car space. This is going to be our car, right? And now I'm going to create an entity attribute called base entity, and connect this base entity to the entity itself. And whenever I have this, I can use the forward vector of this base entity to move our car. So we have forward vector. Forward vector is the forward direction of this entity basically. And what I'm going to do is use this vector and multiply it with speed itself. Sorry about that. It's gonna be scale. We're gonna be scaling the vector. Yeah. And now we will use the forward direction of this base entity and use speed to apply force to our car. And now, as you can see, it goes to that direction. But if I just change the direction of this entity, it will go to that direction, which will be useful in a minute. You can also do this for backward. And you can basically do this minus, because it will just go back. And now we need turning. We will basically use the same concept here, but instead of applying force, we will just rotate the object itself. You can do rotate local, and you can rotate the object on y-axis. As you can see, whenever I rotate x on this axis, y variable changes. So this is the part where you can use rotate local and on y-axis. This will basically rotate the car. And save the script and test it out, see how it feels, what's happening. As you can see, the car turns whenever I press A. This is pretty cool, but as you can see, if I press A, where while it's staying there, it still rotates. Now, in order to fix that, we will use velocity of the car itself. And you can get this with linear velocity from rigid body component. And then get the length, and this is a number. This is just it's 0 whenever it stops, and it moves. It changes over time. So what you can do is create a variable called turn speed and multiply it with velocity, and create this turn speed here. So it's at least you can just change this. You can change this value later from the editor. And now we have this. Let's do the same thing for D2. This is left and right. Yeah, we basically have the rotation, and as you can see, it already drifts. This is pretty cool. I'm pressing D right now, but it's not rotating because there's no velocity. So that's the idea of those car physics basically. It is simple. You can do drifting and stuff. Now what you can do, play with the variables, see how it feels. For example, I will increase the turning speed. As you can see, it just turns like crazy, which I didn't like. Yeah, maybe the problem here can be maybe we need to limit the speed. I'm sorry, the velocity. What you can do, turn velocity and somehow limit it. So we would have a max turn velocity or something, max turning velocity, and this number can be used to limit the turning speed. I mean, predicting that number can be a little bit difficult. What you can do, just put it the console log, the velocity itself, see how it feels, what kind of numbers you have there. And right now, as you can see, velocity goes to 10, 3, and 4. Maybe we can limit it around that number. And then instead of velocity, you can just multiply the number with velocity and then play with the number. For example, let's just try this out. So since I maxed it out, since I have a limit there, it's just not turning like crazy, even though turning speed is a little bit higher. So we multiply the number with velocity itself. That means if the velocity is too high, it would turn like crazy, even though you would have low numbers here. So you gotta limit it somehow. Yeah, that's pretty cool. It feels good. You can play with the numbers. I'm gonna make this project public so you can play with it later. But that's the idea. It is very simple, I know, but whenever you have you add more stuff to it, like the wheels and stuff, it will become more alive. Yeah.